Hey credit warriors, or Credit Shifu here, and these days we are moving further and further away from cash in our payments. Most payments people make today are either swiping, inserting a chip, tapping to pay, or even going through a mobile wallet app on a mobile phone using that piece of plastic or metal known as the credit card. But as you probably know, there are kind of two types of payment cards that we often just lump together as called credit cards, but they're actually credit cards and debit cards. And so today we are going to look at the differences between credit cards and debit cards and the advantages and disadvantages of using each type. So let's go. We're going to start with the basics. Credit cards allow you to borrow money each time you swipe the card up to a preset credit limit. You then have to pay that money back each month. If you fail to pay back the full amount, but just pay back the minimum payment, which is usually as low as $25, but will go up as a percentage as you owe more money on the card. If you just pay the minimum payment, you will end up having to pay interest, usually charged at between 10 and 30%, depending on the card. And credit card interest is way higher than other forms of credit. For example, mortgages, car loans tend to be around 4-5%. Credit cards are way up there, really starting at about 10% and maxing out at about 30%. With debit cards, on the other hand, the money comes straight out of your bank account when you pay with a debit card. If there's not enough money in your account to cover the charge, usually the card will just be declined, or perhaps it will go into overdraft, which would incur a fee, depending on what arrangement you have set up with your bank. Now let's talk about rewards. Many credit cards allow you to earn rewards in the form of frequent flyer miles, transferable points, or also cashback. I'll give you some examples of rewards. For example, you could earn 2 points per dollar on travel, or 1.5% unlimited cashback on every purchase, okay, with certain different cards. Many cards also have welcome bonuses, and the value of these welcome bonuses can range from $150 to around $1,000. And usually to get a welcome bonus, you have to spend a certain amount of money in the first 3 months on the card, and then they will give you that bonus. Debit cards, on the other hand, usually do not earn any kind of rewards, okay? So the standard debit card you get with your bank account, where you do most of your banking, that typically won't earn any rewards. There are a few extremely rare exceptions of debit cards that do earn some kind of rewards. Normally it's limited to cashback. I'll give you one example, the Discover Cashback Debit, and this card earns 1% cashback on the first $3,000 in purchases every month. So you can see here, it's a lot more limited. It's just 1% cashback, and it's only on $3,000 worth of spending. So the maximum cashback you could earn every month is $30 from this debit card. And like we said, that is really a rare one-off. Most of the ones, the standard ones you get from your bank account, like Chase, TD Bank, whatever bank you're with, the standard one that comes with your account normally will not earn any rewards whatsoever. Now let's talk about benefits. Now, many credit cards come with a variety of benefits, like collision damage waiver for rental cars, certain types of travel insurance, global entry, certain types of credits, or even airport lounge access cards like the Amex Platinum, those premium cards, okay? Now, debit cards, on the other hand, typically do not have any of these benefits, certainly not airport lounge access, although while I was researching this, I did look up and find a load of cards in India, a load of debit cards in India that do actually offer airport lounge access, but certainly not in the US. I don't know of any debit card that gives you airport lounge access, and if it is, you'd probably have to pay for each visit anyway. So it's nothing like the premium cards that you have, with benefits. So debit cards really, typically they don't give any benefits. A few debit cards give something that I would call a benefit. For example, the Charles Schwab debit card from Charles Schwab Brokerage, it waives ATM fees, so you can be anywhere in the world, you will not get charged ATM fees for using an ATM. But really, most debit cards, they don't have many benefits like that. And they certainly don't provide things like lounge access or discount on rental cars or anything, all that good stuff that credit cards provide. Now we're going to talk about annual fees. Now, most debit cards do not charge an annual fee unless the bank account that the debit card is connected to charges a fee, either annual or monthly. but most of these accounts give you ways to avoid the fee. For example, my account, the Chase Total Checking, it has a $12 monthly fee, but you can avoid that with one of two methods. Either you have deposits of $500 into the account each month, which is easy to do, right? If you have a job, even a part-time job, you're probably going to earn more than $500 a month. Or your balance every day is a minimum of $1,500. So I use the first method. I have at least $500 being paid in every month, a lot more than $500. Now, credit cards, on the other hand, while some do not have annual fees, the ones with major rewards and benefits do have annual fees. Annual fees start at around $95 for the sort of mid-range cards that have annual fees, and they max out around $550 with those premium credit cards. Obviously, there are some cards that have higher annual fees, invitation-only black cards with like a $5,000 annual fee, but that's not really something the average person has to worry about. So the typical range for annual fees is between $95 and $550. And another thing we should point out as well is that many premium credit cards offer credits which offset the annual fee if you use them. For example, the Amex Platinum gives you a $200 Uber credit, a $200 airline credit, and a $100 Saks Fifth Avenue credit per year, which if you add that up, that adds up to $500. So if you use all of that, your annual fee is only $50. But for most people, it's actually not really convenient for them to use all of it, but they may save some money somewhere with it, which would offset the annual fee. So it's safe to say that credit cards do cost people more money than debit cards do. And in addition to that, the fact that you're borrowing money, you may pay interest. If you pay late, you may also have a late payment fee, which could be around $35, something like that. So there just are more opportunities for fees with credit cards rather than with debit cards. Next, we'll talk about fraud liability. Cue the stereotypical image of a hacker. Ooh. Now, there are separate laws that govern fraud liability on credit cards and on debit cards. Credit cards are governed by the Fair Credit Billing Act, which gives you a maximum liability of $50 for fraudulent charges on a credit card. You must, however, dispute the charge within 60 days of receiving the bill on which that fraudulent charge appears. The creditor then has 30 days to reply and then 2 billing cycles to resolve the dispute. Now, although this is what the law requires, many credit card companies actually use $0 fraud liability as a selling point and disregard the 60-day window as well. They just give you 0%, $0 fraud liability. It's part of their service, so they go above and beyond what the law requires in many cases, not all. Now, with debit cards, you are protected to a certain degree, but the law isn't as robust. So debit cards are governed by the Electronic Funds Transfer Act, okay? And this does give you some protection, but you have to be very quick in reporting the fraudulent charges. If you alert your bank as soon as your card is lost or stolen before fraudulent charges appear, then you're not liable. If you alert them within 2 business days of a fraudulent charge that appears on your account, your liability is $50. If you miss that 2-day deadline and wait up to 60 days, so between 2 and 60 days, your liability is $500. And if it passes 60 days before you report it, you are liable for any money taken from your account. Now, some banks may offer better protection than this, but that's what the law requires, and debit cards certainly aren't as generous with going above and beyond as credit card companies are. Now, credit cards also have another distinct advantage over debit cards in terms of fraud liability, is that when the bank is investigating the fraud, the charges in your account are frozen, okay? The credit card company cannot charge interest on those. They don't expect you to pay them back until the whole thing is finished, at which stage it may be wiped, and they cannot report to the credit bureaus that you've paid late on that charge, okay? So it's basically frozen. It's not your money, it's borrowed money from the card company. But with a debit card, while they're going through the procedure of investigating the fraudulent charge and seeing if they can get it back for you, that money is still out of your account. You have still lost that money, so you are out of pocket while that investigation is going on. So that's kind of a big difference as well. With a debit card, it's your money that has been taken in a fraudulent charge. With a credit card, it's the credit card company's money that has been taken, and you don't have to worry about it, okay? It's their money that's gone. So while it's being sorted out, you are not out of pocket. Now let's talk about personal financial health. Now, with credit cards, obviously you are borrowing money each month, so there is more of a chance of you getting into debt, all right? Now, studies have shown that people do spend more money when they use a credit card than if they used a debit card or cash. It's a psychological thing. It really does have the effect. They just think, oh, you know, just a little bit more, I'll pay it back next month. And then next month they think the same thing, and they do overspend with credit cards. So you are more likely, if you're not financially disciplined, to get into debt on a credit card, pay interest, or have late payment charges, that kind of thing. Obviously with a debit card, there is nowhere near as much chance of that, because most debit cards, if there's no money in your account, literally they just won't go through, okay, they'll be declined. So, you know, it's a different mindset. With a debit card, you're looking at your bank balance and you're, you know, disciplining yourself, how much you know, budgeting for each day. With a credit card, people hardly pay attention to budgets, and you know, I know I don't, but you know, luckily I earn enough money that I don't really need to at the moment. But you know, it's just, if you are in a difficult financial situation, credit cards often can make it worse. So when considering credit cards versus debit cards are better, definitely, for your personal financial health than credit cards are. Now let's look at the effect on your credit score. So credit cards are actually a very key component to building a credit score, right? And if you live in the United States, you'll know that really to go through life, you need a credit score. Otherwise, you're always going to get charged ridiculous deposits for, like, you know, you want a new cell phone plan, $400 deposit. You want to rent an apartment, 3 months rent in advance, you know, that kind of thing if you have a bad credit score. So credit cards are a great way of building your credit score. They will report positive and negative information if there is negative information on your account. I'll give you an example of how to build your credit score with credit cards. Let's say a person starts from pretty much zero. Credit scores don't go to zero, but someone who's never had credit before, they open about 3 credit cards within a 12-month period, and their credit score, as long as they've paid on time every month, their credit score should be at around 700 by the end of a year, which is a very respectable range. You'll definitely have no problem renting an apartment, getting a cell phone plan, even applying for a mortgage. You won't be quite the best interest rates, but you'll definitely get a mortgage as long as all your other factors are good. Now, with debit cards, they do not report to the credit bureaus on a monthly basis. Actually, the only real reporting you could get from a debit card would be if you went overdrawn in the bank account that debit card is connected to, and that then, you know, you didn't pay it off, it went into collections, and you may eventually get a collection on your credit report. Not in all cases, because some collection companies don't report to credit reports, but in some cases you may do. So with the debit card, the only possibility of any credit information on your report is negative info, but credit cards, when used right, they can put a lot of positive information onto your credit report, help you raise your credit score, and they're pretty much the primary way of increasing your credit score here in the United States. Now let's look at access to cash. Now you can get cash out of an ATM with a credit card. This is what's called a cash advance, but we really do not recommend this, okay? So cash advances, they will charge you a cash advance fee, which is often, it could be about 3% or so. And with a cash advance, unlike regular purchases on your credit card, with many credit cards, not all, but many credit cards will start charging you interest from the day that you made that cash advance, rather than when your statement due date is, okay? So it could be your statement closes, you wait like 21 days until your due date. You've got that buffer zone to pay off the charges before you're charged interest. With cash advances, interest is charged immediately. So it's really not recommended. Credit card companies also don't like the look of people who take a lot of cash out through cash advances on their credit card. They kind of regard them as desperate for money, or they don't really know what they're doing with that cash, could be buying drugs with it or whatever. So yeah, they definitely look down on people who take a lot of cash advances. Meanwhile, debit cards offer you, in most cases, instant access to your cash just through an ATM, typically with no fees as long as it's your own bank's ATM or an ATM that they partner with, and that money comes straight out of your account. So you don't have to borrow money from someone and then pay it back. It's coming straight from your account. So there's no interest, there's no fees. It's, if you're gonna take money out of an ATM, really a debit card is the only way to go. All right, guys, now let's get into the conclusion of this video. So credit cards have several advantages, most notably $0 fraud liability, guarantee of that, then all the benefits and rewards that you can earn with a credit card, and also the fact that credit cards will report positive information to your credit report and really help you build your credit score so that you can get all the advantages associated with that in the future. Debit cards, on the other hand, do have some advantages as well. Obviously, they give you access to the cash in your bank account without any fees or charges associated with the cash advance. So people who want cash definitely are going to need a debit card. They also are more suitable for people with, bad financial habits or who have had some financial trouble and are not that disciplined, okay, and do not want to, tempt themselves into getting into debt. Anyone in that situation, I would recommend use a debit card. If you're in debt already, definitely use a debit card until you get yourself out of debt, and then you can take baby steps into getting back into some credit cards and see if you can discipline yourself with them, all right? So there are distinct advantages and disadvantages of both, but in general, for those who are financially disciplined, I would say a credit card is essential to have in your wallet. Now, one credit card that I like is the Chase Sapphire Preferred. It's offering a $60,000 sign-up bonus at the moment. We'll put the link to that below. I'll also put a link to my credit card offers guide, where I actually give you a lot of the credit cards I personally have, the ones I recommend, and I give you a little paragraph basically outlining the various reasons that I recommend them, the benefits that you can get from them. I get a huge amount of free travel, first class flights, business class, 5-star hotels for free through credit cards. So those are the ones I recommend. I'll put my guide below. You guys can check it out if you want to learn more about them. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please leave your opinion on credit cards versus debit cards below. Leave a like for the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're new. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
And I'm not saying this, I feel crazy.